Hey there, internet friends. Welcome to another episode of That Nerdy Site Show, a weekly podcast where the team members from That Nerdy Site get together to talk about our lives and all of the nerdy things we love about them. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey, and joining me once again this week we have Cameron Abbott. How you doing, Cameron?
Hey, what's going on, nerds?
What is going on? Today, Cam and I are going to be talking about Diablo Immortal, Trek to Yomi, my time at Sandrock, my Steam Deck, which arrived this last week, the opening few episodes of The Boys Season 3, and just what a dumpster fire Secrets of Dumbledore is, the latest Fantastic Beasts movie. And it should go without saying, trans rights are human rights. Fuck turfs, fuck J.K. Rowling and her turfy turfness. But before we hop into any of that, a little bit of housekeeping for you. That Bond show is almost over. So go check that out while you still can over on youtube.com/thatnerdysite. This last week's episode was Skyfall. Unsurprisingly, a very, very good standout movie. I tweeted out that I had to sit through 3.5 months of Sean Connery and Roger Moore, but at least it gave me an excuse to watch Skyfall again. So we got that. But yeah, we got only a couple more episodes to go. Yeah.
Yeah, fun note. Skyfall's actually my favorite James Bond.
Nice. I mean, spoilers, it ranks pretty high on both mine and Logan's lists as well. So yeah. And we peek behind the curtain. We have recorded all of the episodes at this point, or all of the filmed episodes. We're going to record one final episode when Logan is back from vacation, as kind of like a wrap up, like of the whole series, kind of a little finale episode. But yeah, we've already done our No Time to Die episode as well. So stay tuned for those last few episodes every Saturday at 9 a.m. And also still ongoing saga, we have Friday Night Dying Light, which usually gets uploaded on Friday nights unless Trevor is dumb and forgets and doesn't upload it until the next day. Oops. But yeah, go check out the ongoing saga with Cameron. I know you were going to try and like finish up recording this last week. How did that go? Not good? Still
good,
got some...
good, but like not great. Okay. I will say, I've had a lot of things to do to get ready for starting my new job tomorrow. And one of those, but also like, this weekend was also the kickoff cup for Overwatch League, and there was a lot of stuff that was happening over the last week or so. So, to put it simply, I got a lot done, but as it turns out, I found myself constantly just being like, crap already. Is it already time for me to end the episode? Crap. Cause like game's good, man. Like game has gotten to a point where it's real good. I thought for a second we were going to get like pushed into a point where, things kind of leave off in episode 20. So the episode hasn't come out yet. We still have 2 more weeks before that episode comes. There's a lot of cool stuff going on, man. I'm really stoked to keep playing the game. This will probably just be like the thing I do over the weekends now or overnight. So like, hey, I'm just going to do this now and just like record a bunch of episodes and then can them and then edit them as need be. But yeah, it's a good time. It's a good time.
All right, cool. Well, stay tuned for those. There was definitely, when we started doing Friday Night Dying Light, I was like, I wonder which one's going to go on longer, that Bond show or Friday Night Dying Light. I stopped thinking that when the episodes for Friday Night Dying Light started coming in at like only like 30 minutes or something like that. I was like, oh, that's a way longer game. Yeah, that's gonna keep running well past that Bond show, so long as Cam keeps with it and sticks to it. So yeah, stay tuned for more of those episodes every Friday evening. Fingers crossed I don't forget to schedule them again. Yeah.
Oh, fingers crossed I don't have a migraine that ends up like incapacitating me all day. And so I end up just like forgetting about
it. I mean, the weirdest thing is you did the thing that I've kind of been hoping you would do for like months now, of you sent it to me on like Wednesday. So I
sent it on Wednesday.
I wasn't like pinging you Wednesday night being like, hey Cam, where's the new episode? Or like Thursday night, hey Cam, where's the new episode so I can get it uploaded for Friday? And so you sent it like ahead of time and I saw it come in and then I was busy doing something else and completely forgot to actually go and schedule it and upload it until you pinged me while I was at work on Saturday and was like, "Hey, I was out with a migraine all day, but did this go out?" And I was like, "No, it did not. Oops." So I took a quick break to
Hey,
get that going. So.
And it's like I told you, if we just need to skip this week, that's cool too.
Yeah,
No worries. Like it's fine.
It's
But
whatever.
hey, it's fine. It's like we like this show is done for the love of the game and love of the show and like doing these things. Like nobody reached out to us to say, "Hey, where's the latest episode?"
Yeah,
so like
also true. Yeah,
a little telling, but you know, it is what it is. Like, hey, we're gonna finish this out. This project will get finished.
Yeah.
Or I'll die before I finish it. One or the other.
Awesome. That's a fun thought too. Thanks, Mr. Morbid. Other than that, if you like what you hear, please remember to like, subscribe, rate, review, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. So Cam, let's kick things off with the game that like I was like, oh yeah, that's a thing, and then people started tweeting about it. I was like, oh, apparently it's a big thing. Diablo Immortal has finally come out. This is, correct me if I'm wrong, this is the one that like when it was announced was basically like a wet fart to the BlizzCon audience, right? And the guy was like, is this a joke? Right? It was
is this a late April Fool's joke?
Okay, so yeah, so
sorry, he said, is this an early and or either late April Fool's joke? No. Oh my god.
Yeah. Which, I mean, also that guy was a dick, but also Diablo Immortal, despite that, you know, tepid original response, seems like a lot of people have been playing this. It's also one that I immediately like, nope, zero interest in playing this because you got me sucked into fucking Final Fantasy Brave Exvius or whatever, War of the Visions a couple years back, and I spent way too much money on that game before finally uninstalling it. So not going anywhere near Diablo Immortal. When literally the first person I saw tweet about it was tweeting about how they finished a dungeon and were immediately served like a, hey, buy this $2 pack as like a reward for finishing your dungeon. I was like, okay, fuck you, Activision Blizzard. But do tell, Cameron, how's Diablo Immortal?
Like, I'm just gonna put it out there. I've only spent maybe like, I'm level 22. I've put in maybe 6-7 hours with this game, if that. I'll say this so here's the thing. I'm not playing it on mobile. I'm playing it on PC because they have a PC client.
Yeah.
There's crossplay with mobile. It's fine. It runs well, at least on the PC client. I've had a good time with it. Like it's Diablo, but like a little bit different. Like it's been mobilized, so to speak. And it's like, it's not as in depth as regular Diablo, like Diablo 3, but at the same time, it's also not, like it's straightforward, gets you to the point it does a great job of when you start the game, not bogging you down with too many menus and getting you introduced to the actual like mechanics of playing the game. So does a great job of that. Overall, like the story is somewhat interesting. This takes place after Diablo 2, before Diablo 3. You're kind of like doing an interim thing here that has to do with the World Stone. So for like lore nerds like me who love Diablo lore, like, oh, it's pretty interesting. But the problem that is just like, and here's the thing, I've not run into this because I'm still in the early game, but I cannot tell you how many times I've read articles or seen anybody talk about it where, like end game, late game, in order to to finish the game, you have to spend money. Like, and this is the same thing that we saw happen recently with Lost Ark, which was another game that came out, that had a mobile/PC client, was originally released in Korea, came over, and it's like, the thing about it is, I don't know if Lost Ark's the company that was being cited early back when Diablo Immortal was first announced and was like debuted as like people were able to play it on mobile devices at BlizzCon. I'm not sure if people reference Lost Ark as or the company that made Lost Ark as the partner company that made Diablo Immortal, but because I've never played Lost Ark, so I can't really compare the two. But this is ringing around the kind of same circles of your OTK, your Twitch streamers who are playing these new games. And here's the thing: Diablo Immortal is not necessarily a bad game, especially for a mobile game. It's competent. It plays really well. Controls super well. But the problem that I'm already seeing in it is I can already see the menus for items that I know are going to be reagents that you have to put in to make better equipment to bump up the numbers so that lets you play like and have an easier time and basically win the game. I can already see the writing on the wall this early in them. I've heard and found out from other people like the pay to reward scale for what you get is atrocious. I forgot. I think it was a Kotaku article or there's some article out there that it's like $120,000.
Yeah, I saw something basically like right before we started recording that was like, if you want to max out a character, you might spend up to $110,000.
Yep. And here's the thing: after seeing some people who were big time streamers go full whale, which by the way, for people who don't know, in mobile gaming, whale is the term for people who spend absolutely ludicrous amounts of money, to, and that's how they play the mobile game.
Mm-hmm.
That they do it with gacha games, they do it with other types of games, and basically the whales are the people who actually make money for mobile gaming companies. And so a lot of stuff is catered towards incentivizing whales to spend as much money as possible.
Yeah.
And that's definitely come out here as well. Like that's very clear. Like basically the grind to buy ratio is, I don't think people are saying it's as bad as Lost Ark was, but it's pretty bad. So I'm not surprised. This is something that people had major concerns about when the game was announced. This is something that when we started seeing kind of games like this pop up, or is this an issue we're going to see? Is there going to there's like 3 different currencies that bleed into each other. It gets pretty nuts. It gets pretty gnarly. And it's honestly a little gross, but at the same time, I'm a necromancer and I'm going around shooting, like summoning skeleton boys and, beating up demons. So like there's that incentivization of like, yeah, I think I'm still going to probably go back and play it, but this is not like Brave Exodus like Final Fantasy, War of the Visions, where like I got super into it and wanting to like upgrade my people and like get get cool weapons and stuff like that. Like that level of stuff that I fell into for that, I can see other people falling into for this. And as somebody who spent that money that you referenced, like we both spent quite a bit of money. The money that was spent, like I don't regret what I did with that game because it was still a really fun time and was telling like a really cool and interesting story. But I don't necessarily see Diablo Immortal carrying that same level of interest for me. Although I assume other people will.
Mm-hmm. Is there any reason you wouldn't just hop into like Diablo 2 Resurrected or whatever the remake of Diablo 2 is?
I mean, if I was going to hop into
I found
anything,
out my sister and brother-in-law have been playing that a lot recently too. So
yeah, if I was going to hop into anything, I probably would hop into like I have Diablo 3 installed on my PS5 still, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Or I would install Diablo 3 on my PC. Like if I really want like a full Diablo experience, I already own what is, my opinion, the best Diablo experience out there. Mm-hmm. So why wouldn't I just do that?
Fair. I looked it up while you were chatting. Looks like Lost Ark was developed by Tripod Studio and Smilegate, and the co-developer on Diablo Immortal is NetEase. So
okay, so completely different.
I think you're thinking of something else. NetEase sounds like a name I've heard before though.
NetEase,
in the mobile
I'm
game
familiar
space.
With.
So
yeah, NetEase is in the mobile game space huge. Yeah. I'm sorry, actually, NetEase I believe is actually the Chinese partner. So in China, to do business in China, you can't like bring your foreign company over there.
It's their internet company, their internet technology company.
Yep, there it is. So yeah, NetEase is the company that Blizzard works with to basically be able to put out games in China. So okay,
yeah.
So that's So it's all done in house with them. So I'm not surprised.
Yeah. It's I definitely I do regret the money I put into War of the Visions and just like the time and money wasted on that game. um, because it is doing what shitty mobile tactics do of like preying on like, oh, here's a limited time character, but we're not going to give you an option to just buy it outright. Like, we'll give you a chance of getting it, but you're going to have to pay money to get like a random drop of it. And if it's like, oh, well, I really want Cecil from Final Fantasy IV, so I was putting in far more money than I should have, or like Cloud in Final Fantasy VII, or so, like all those kinds of things. And so yeah, fuck that game, and fuck like just shitty mobile practices that prey on addictive personalities like that.
100%.
And shout out to James Stephanie Sterling out there doing seemingly almost weekly videos on these kinds of topics, at least for a while there. I think they've probably got some other fish to fry these days, but I've definitely watched many of their videos about
many a Jimquisition.
Yeah, many a Jimquisition about shitty mobile developers and loot boxes and all that shit. Well, if you do stick with Diablo Immortal, cool. But if you bounce off, that seems like probably all the better.
They have I will say they do have a pretty solid battle pass, because instead of it being like oh, hey, you have to like hop into the battle pass, it's like you are already enrolled into it. And then if you want like the power battle pass or whatever, it's like $4.
Yeah.
Like,
so it's like the Fortnite model.
Well, the Fortnite model is like $20 for the.
No, it's like 10.
Is it 10?
It's 10, yeah. And you get like $9 worth of stuff throughout, kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. Wait. I'm sorry. I was thinking of the Magic Arena battle pass is like $20.
Yeah.
But their battle pass seasons literally last for like 6 months, so you pay like $20 for like. Anyway, with what they do to basically make it so you don't have to spend money in that game, I'm fine spending $20 for the battle pass like once every 6 months.
Yeah, that's how it starts. So I will switch us over then to Trek to Yomi, which I will tell you, Cam, is probably one of the most Cameron-ass games I've ever played.
Ooh,
I think you would really like Trek to Yomi, at least in terms of like the story and the cinematic quality of this. This is for those that don't know, this is effectively made a big splash at like a State of Play not too long ago, because it's basically a side scroller hack and slash, but it is shot in black and white Kurosawa style. It is a samurai game, and it is basically almost fully lifting the Kurosawa mode off of Ghost of Tsushima. I played it on Xbox because it's available on Xbox Game Pass, and it's probably like a 5 to 6 hour story. It's not too long, and it's not. Admittedly, it's not too like difficult, and I will also say that for me, the easily the most impressive thing of this game is the cinematography, how it's shot, how scenes are framed and stuff like that. Because you are basically running through this town in rural Edo Japan, like Edo era Japan kind of thing, as a samurai. You're running through, and every couple screens or so, you're going to be like stopped by, a few enemies that you're going to have to, take out before you can kind of progress forward. And it's not done in the way of Ghost of Tsushima, where it's like you show up and you just stand like face off against somebody. It's side scrolling hack and slash kind of thing. The game gives you certain combos that you can use, and you basically have like a light attack, a heavy attack, a parry, a roll. It's definitely kind of playing with those vibes. And then as the game progresses, you start unlocking more combos and more techniques and stuff like that. You have like a health bar and a stamina bar. So if you get like too drained of stamina, you will kind of be a little sluggish, and people can basically take some free hits on you. But at the same time, if you like parry at the right time, it goes into slow-mo mode, and you can basically like slice through somebody pretty quickly and pretty easily. And yeah, for me, this thing is all about like the look and style of it. It is very much what I envision in Kurosawa or Kurosawa mode. It is reminiscent of that film style, black and white, lots of like wide shots for the village, but also you'll like, if you there's lots of like hidden little secret kind of off the beaten path things that you can go and you can find collectibles or you can find like health and stamina upgrades. You get a few like projectile weapons that you can use. With bow shurikens, like a bow and arrow, and then a very rudimentary like cannon kind of thing for
Hmm.
explosive gunpowder. Um, and yeah, it's pretty simplistic in its gameplay and combat. You're basically trying to out samurai, out duel the people who are coming at you. Um, the story was a little lacking for me. In large part, I wasn't getting as invested in the characters and the tale of your hero character, Hiroki, I think. One of those. I mean, so much I don't even remember the main character's name. I had to look it up on Wikipedia. Hiroki. Um, uh, he he basically is like lured away from the village to take out some bandits, and then once he does and returns, a bigger horde of bandits and a big rural um uh marauder kind of guy comes in and lights up the town and kills a whole bunch of villagers and stuff like that. And it is largely a tale of duty and vengeance and all the themes you would think about in these kinds of things. Trek to Yomi is in reference to the, I guess, the afterlife or the underworld or
The
whatever,
underworld.
something
Hmm.
like that. So at a point in the game, you kind of have a potentially near death experience and you start doing a couple chapters in Yomi, or and kind of start dealing with like supernatural elements on your quest for vengeance and stuff like that. Um, uh, the game, like the characters and story, didn't resonate with me nearly as much as Ghost of Tsushima did. And I think in part the game suffers a little bit of because of that for me, or because it is existing very blatantly in the shadow of Ghost of Tsushima. And so I think it is a small indie team, so, and I think they knew that they weren't going to be able to really stack up against that kind of AAA big budget game. So really they just leaned all in on the style of the game and how they were going to frame these different levels and sequences and stuff like that. So yeah, I think knowing that you were the person who played Ghost of Tsushima straight through on Kurosawa mode, I just think this would very much be all up in your jam as a game. So I would definitely recommend it to you. Um, yeah, it's not too long of an experience. I was playing on like the most basic difficulty level. Um, and then there was like this wildly ridiculous ramp up in difficulty for the final boss at the end of the game. And I'm like, why do developers do that? That's so annoying. um, but other than that, and a few moments where I was like, all right, I feel like I got screwed by some of the,
Hmm.
some bad control schemes or something like that. Um, it was a fun couple of nights, just kind of like working through, doing some hacking and slashing, being a samurai in black and white, feudal Japan kind of stuff. So, uh, yeah, I think those are my Trek to Yomi thoughts. Any questions or anything from me?
No, I'm already downloading it.
All right, yeah,
It's on Game Pass on PC, so I downloaded it.
there you go. Yeah, it was wild to see that. Because it had like debuted in a state of play, in a PlayStation state of play. So it was like crazy that they got like a big, marketing push from PlayStation, and then it launched day and date on Game Pass. And I was like, all right, cool. No harm, no foul. Yeah. Other than that, I think it's like a $20 game or something like that. So yeah, go go. I will be very curious to hear what you think of Trek to Yomi, and I hope I'm
Yeah,
not steering you in a wrong direction.
I'll let you
Um,
know if you did.
yeah, but it like as I was playing, and I was just like, I think Cam would enjoy this a lot more than I will, or than I am, especially because if you play like on the normal or harder difficulties, combat could very easily be Soulsborne esque.
Mm,
Because it is high risk, high reward kind of damage. There's even once you beat the game once, a final difficulty unlocks that's one hit kills you or the enemies. So like
mm,
basically it is like just straight up samurai duels. If you get the first slash off, you're gonna win. If they get the first slash off, they're gonna win. Um,
that's pretty rad.
yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I will be curious to hear what you think about Trek to Yomi. But those are my thoughts on it. Very, very beautiful game. Just didn't quite connect with me as much as I would have liked in terms of like story elements and characters and stuff. And also, it is much like Ghost of Tsushima. It is, I believe, designed and everything I was playing kind of seemed like it is designed for Japanese voice track and subtitles kind of thing. I played it with English voice track and English subtitles, and there were very clearly like moments where the dialogue they're saying does not match what I'm seeing on the screen. I mean, like it just
Hmm.
phrasing differences and stuff like that. As well as there were some that was just like, audio just dropped out, so either like that line didn't get recorded or or some kind of hiccup. I
Hmm.
not putting too much stock behind that, because it's like I get it. A very small team making a Japanese voice casted game that they're also doing English dubbing and stuff. Some things are probably going to slip through the cracks. But yeah, that is Trek to Yomi. So Cam, I'm going to throw it back over to you. We talked about this a little bit last week, but you've been playing some more time with My Time at Sandrock.
Hmm.
Any updated impressions on that? How's that going?
Yeah, I will definitely say there's some serious impressions that I have that I would update on it. I have to say, like my initial impressions of this game were a little off. Not in the like any of the nice things I had to say about it, but in kind of like what my expectations were. I will say this: this is not a so. If I were to compare this to like a Stardew Valley or a Harvest Moon, I would say those are games are farming simulators where you can request things or build things, like different stuff like that happens, but your main progress is always going to be in building out your farm.
Mm-hmm.
That is not the case for My Time at Sandrock. My Time at Sandrock, it is a building simulator. It is you are a builder. You are constructing stuff at the request of townspeople. And your job is to, like, the entire point of gathering resources is to make more machines or better machines to help you produce these big construction projects to improve the town. This is not a bad thing. This is actually a really cool thing. I think that this is very unique. It sets it apart from being just another Harvest Moon clone or Stardew clone. I think it actually makes it stand out a little bit better in that there are things tied to what you do and how you explore and what you do to gather resources that are set themselves distinctly apart from like what you're trying to fulfill and do for other people or for yourself in a game like Stardew Valley. Where in Stardew Valley, it might be like, yeah, I have to gather the resources to have this made, or I have to gather the resources so I can put this together. That's not, or like to fulfill this task in the community center or something. That's really not the case here. The case here, it's like, hey, you have this project. Like I had this thing, I had a quest where I had to break down a part of a stage, but the wood that the stage was made out of was stronger than my axe was capable, like my pickaxe was capable of destroying. And so I had to do an entire side tangent of things to unlock bronze in order to build my next tier of tool to do that with. Where in, Stardew Valley or something like that, where it's like you're never really locked out of the base game and like what you're trying to do in the game. Not like there's a couple of exceptions.
I mean, I would say, yeah, like at least like you need to get the bronze axe and stuff to be able to you take out the big tree stumps, because you're just not gonna get enough wood otherwise. And same with like the big rocks with like the hammer and stuff. I'd say there's a little bit of that kind of like you need to reach a certain threshold. But then after that, it's like, yeah, if you keep upgrading beyond that, it's going to make your life a lot easier, but you don't necessarily need to do it.
And I would say for this, it's not even like a, oh yeah, you kind of have to do this. It's a, hey, you have to do this. Like, no ifs or buts. Did you spend your time like building other machines and stuff and your resources in things that didn't let you build this new tool? Well, congratulations. You have to now deviate from everything you've been doing to go build this tool. Not a bad thing. Like I said, it's not a bad thing, but it is a strong deviation from what my expectations were when I started with this game.
Mm-hmm.
I will say I love a lot of the characters that I've met so far. A lot of the characters are pretty interesting. There's this church that's there that is like, everybody's like kind of like made it seem like, oh, this church is like filled with nice people and is a good thing. I don't trust it. It's like the church, they're like one of the church people is in charge of selling water. Don't trust it. One, because water is a resource that should be free. And that's just my personal opinion.
Okay. I mean, you realize they sell water all over the place. And yes, there is also free water. Well, I mean, kind of. You also still have to pay like water bills and stuff like that. But
yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, it's just like, it's like the moment they get introduced, they're like, and by the way, there's this church here. And it's like, huh. Don't trust it. Anyway, people are really cool. Like, there's a lot of like really interesting, neat characters that you'll meet. I found out a bunch of people are romanceable, which is interesting.
Yeah, we talked about that, I think, last time, that there doesn't seem to be like a gender lock on that.
There's no gender lock on it. I have confirmed that.
Okay.
There's a hunky bar owner who is super cool. And then there's also like the other builder who's really cute and cool. We did a thing where we teamed up with a local to essentially, like, we couldn't do any of the work that we wanted to do. So we went ahead and did like a free day at the game center. And I played whack-a-mole against the other builder, the female builder. And we had a good time.
Okay.
It wasn't a date because we were there with a friend, but
sure.
It was pretty cool.
You had a third wheel, got it.
Yeah, it was a fun time. Yeah, and like I have to say, like I really am impressed with like the level of complexity that some of this stuff has, but I don't know how much more time I'm going to put into it just because there are other things that I need to play.
Mm-hmm.
But I can definitely say that I've enjoyed my time with my time at Sandrock.
Okay, very cool.
This is definitely a game I think I will be like revisiting on like a lazy Sunday.
There you go. It'll be something you can kind of just come back to at your leisure. No rush to, try and burn through that one. That makes sense. All right. Well, I will segue over. I think I mentioned this last week, but my Steam Deck has arrived.
Show me.
I have my Steam Deck.
Oh my gosh!
Here, it is a big chunky boy.
That's bigger than a Switch.
Oh yeah, it's definitely bigger and wider than a Switch. It is it's probably good, I don't know, like a foot wide kind of thing, and like 4 or 5 inches ish tall. It is a big beefy boy. I have not gone through and done any kind of like crazy modding or anything like that, or like bringing in other things. I've largely just been playing a few games out of my Steam library so far. It's been lovely. Just like I spent the last few nights just kind of replaying through Portal 2 for the first time in many, many years. That was a ton of fun. I've also been playing through or continuing my playthrough of Final Fantasy VI Pixel Remaster. Both of those two, like they are like Steam Deck compatible to varying degrees. Like Portal 2, as it is, directly from Steam, was very much like this is fully compatible kind of thing. Whereas like Final Fantasy VI is like it's mostly compatible. I'm unfortunately stuck back with the like shitty base font that the Final Fantasy Pixel remasters use. So like the text is rather squished and on a smaller screen, somewhat tinier. It's still like perfectly fine and legible and stuff, but there are like moments where the game, even though it has controller support, when you go to like enter a character's name, it is very much like, okay, you need to type this in at the keyboard now. It doesn't give you the old school, like, here's, the grid
Mm-hmm.
of letters to go in and type. So I have to like pull up the keypad or the keyboard on the Steam Deck and like type in Setzer's name. And
What does it look like? Is it like a manual keyboard, or is it a digital one?
it's a digital one, yeah. It
Okay.
basically like
Okay.
it'll you push like the Steam button and the X button together, and that'll like pull it up at any time. And it takes
Okay.
up like the bottom half the screen. You can just kind of tap away at it.
Sure.
I will say like when I was first using it to like search for games either in the library or like search for potentially other things I was going to pick up in the Steam store, um, it was finicky in that like it wasn't seemingly like catching everything I was typing. Like it was clicking and I was getting like the feedback of, okay, I hit the button, but then I'd go and like look at what had like actually been typed in, and it looked like, a couple of letters had been dropped and stuff. So a little wonky on that, um yeah, it's basically like I can, instead of sit here on my computer, I can basically just lie in bed, kind of have it. It can burn through battery pretty quickly, so I've just kind of kept it plugged in since I'm just playing it like, yeah, before I go to bed at night. Can get a little warm, so so I kind of have to like I'll tilt it up sometimes to let some air kind of flow underneath rather than just kind of leave it resting there on the bed. But yeah, it's basically like a larger Switch that because of like cloud saves and stuff like that, I just have access to anything that I have on my Steam account. I downloaded Stardew, and I can load up my old Stardew save from
Nice.
my 80 plus hours of Stardew from a few years back if I want to. um yeah, the thing I started looking at that have not gone through like and fully done is adding Xbox Cloud Gaming. It was one of the first things that
Mm-hmm.
somebody recommended like I should try and do. And admittedly, like I don't necessarily feel like I probably need to do that, because they were like,
Mm-hmm.
oh yeah, like it's a game changer playing Halo Infinite on there. I'm like, okay, maybe, but like also I didn't really care about Halo Infinite much myself, so I probably don't really need that experience. Um, but yeah, it's just like a cool thing. It is the first time in a while where I've been like, yeah, I should maybe throw an emulator on there and finally play Mother 3 after all these years, play that fan
There you
translation
go.
of Mother 3. So we'll see. And then I mean, even like last night as I finished Portal 2, I was like, you know what I could do? I could buy and play Persona 4 Golden on here if I wanted to. And then I immediately
Oh,
was
but you
like,
could install.
but
You
also
could.
fuck Persona 4 Golden and the Risei trophy that kept me from the platinum on that game in Vita. But
I
what
was
were you
about
gonna say?
I was about to say you can do them. You can install the mod that makes that re-enables Yusuke's romance option.
Sure. Yeah, I guess I could do that. Um, yeah. It's definitely it's a nice vibe to just be like, oh, I can just play these things. The one of the next kind of ones that I'm interested in really diving, maybe putting some time into, is Planet Coaster.
Mm.
I played it was like a PlayStation Plus game earlier this year, and I played that, and I was like, had a fun couple of Let's Plays on that. So much so that I was like, all right, I'm just gonna buy like the full version, like all the bonus packs and stuff like that on Steam because it was on sale at one point. So I have all of that, and I'm like, all right, now let me go in and like build a Back to the Future theme park or a Ghostbusters theme park, or just play with some of those things. Haven't done it yet because I feel like that's one of those games that probably it is one of those games that is like, it's partially supported for the Steam Deck, but it also has like a lot of menus, and so I'm sure text is going to be very, very tiny and stuff like that. But yeah, it's a fun it is a fun way to kind of wind down my evenings and get ready for bed. I also have Chrono Trigger as another one that I have installed, ready to like hop back into. Maybe I'll get back into some Loop Hero. It seems like that'd probably be a really good one for this. And then also I just have all those other Final Fantasy pixel remasters if I want to put some time into that. Oh, there's also I should pick this up. The Aperture Desk Job. Since I played Portal 2, it is a free playable short made specifically for the Steam Deck. So maybe I will check that out as well. I'll be very. They announced, I think, in the last week or two that they've had to delay the docking station for the Steam Deck just because of global shortages and stuff like that. But that's definitely something that I'll be interested to maybe look into grabbing and picking up just to, record Let's Plays from the Steam Deck, or see how that goes. So yeah, those are my my Steam Deck thoughts. It's fun to be part of the club now that can, throw those tweets out there and be like, hey, sorry Greg, and sorry Lauren, I'm one of the people that now has a Steam Deck, but I'm enjoying it, having a good time with it. So yeah, those are them Steam Deck thoughts. I'm like the real thing that I look at, I'm like, don't do it, Trevor, don't do it, is when I look at Skyrim and I'm like, it's been a long time since I played Skyrim. I kind of have the Skyrim itch, especially given that like we're not going to get Starfield this year, so maybe I will just kind of like jump into a Western RPG, or maybe I'll boot up Knights of the Old Republic again or something like that. Who knows? But yeah, shout out to the Steam Deck. So I will throw it back over to you, Cam, because you want to talk about The Boys Season 3, which started this week. So tell me your thoughts on The Boys Season 3. Do you want to do like spoilers, full spoiler chat?
Oh no, I won't do a spoiler chat for this. It's especially since we're talking about Season 3,
mm-hmm.
and it's like we have like a long-standing thing where like we've talked about Season 1 and 2. Like this is not like an episodic. This is not like that D plus show or anything like that, where like the expectation is that you will have watched it. So there are no spoilers here.
Cool.
For Season 3 or and very, very light spoilers for Seasons 1 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
Just to kind of give the premise. The premise of The Boys is basically there is a Black Ops, Wet Ops team that handles superheroes because it turns out when people have superpowers, they suck.
They're going to be pretty corrupt pretty quickly.
Yeah. That, and what ends up, this is so the original the Boys comics that the show is based off of, was essentially a look at a like truer to life look at superheroes in a post 9/11 era. This is like spoilers for the comics, for a comic book that literally came out like 20 years ago. But like and it's not even like a spoiler really, but one of the things they mention in the comic books is that essentially during 9/11, the premier superhero team got involved in trying to stop one of the jets that hit the Twin Towers. And so in the Boys comic book universe, it instead crashed into the Brooklyn Bridge. But that only happened because the superhero team interfered and ended up messing up rescuing people. And then it was like covered up. Like that's a very minor plot point for the Boys comic that is not intact in the actual show itself. So like, don't worry, I didn't spoil anything for the show.
They do a very different thing middle of / late in season 1 involving like planes and terrorist attacks kind of thing.
Yeah. Like, and the thing about it is like, so the show takes place in like, the late 2010s or 2020, in this era of kind of like, we are in a very different kind of America than we were in post 9/11 in post 9/11. We are very much departed from that. Where there was a lot of talk about, corporate cronyism, backdoor dealings that the government does with corporations that hurt the common person, that those themes are still intact in The Boys in the current in the Amazon TV series. It is at its core satire, but everything they say, it like hits home in a way that is like sometimes very uncomfortable and sometimes very painful.
Yeah. And they have like a lot of targets. Like it is at times political satire, it is times entertainment satire, is news satire. It's like the idea is like, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is a thing, but it's also a thing with real life superheroes playing themselves in the movies and also being superheroes in real life, and also they're corrupt and they have, very business handlers, limited government oversight, and yeah, all sorts of like it is a much more dark and cynical approach to
Mhm.
like, the Disneyfication of the MCU or something like that.
That one really comes across in these first 3 episodes. There is a direct, like, it's good. What
Hmm.
they do with it is very good, and it's also current, like, commentary on, like, there's commentary and not necessarily satire of it, but commentary on Me Too, on the, like,
I mean,
pure, like, the
one of the characters in season 2 was a literal like Nazi. So
oh yeah.
it's very much, touching on that kind of like the alt-right, movement.
Hmm. Like, it is for real. Like, it hits it hard, and they're so brilliant about it. Eric Kripke, who was the original showrunner and creator of Supernatural, he's a, like, long time running, like, showrunner in television. He basically got a hold of the ability to make the show, and he has made it as poignant as possible in a modern, for example, in a modern, because it's before it was like, well, the government can spy on everybody, and it's like, yeah, but now we live in a modern society where everybody spies on everybody indiscriminately without even meaning to. Because when regular people see something happen in the streets, they pull out their cell phone. They see something like this entire, like, surveillance state, which was a big theme of the Boys comic book in the post 9/11 era, is completely not touched on very much at all in the show, because we have passed that point of, like, an expectation of any sort of privacy, whether it's by our government or by our fellow citizens. Like, it's not there anymore, and it makes strong commentary about that. I really love the show. I loved the comic book when I read it. And I adore the way that they have adapted it, because the comic book is far more crass. It is far more crass. Garth Ennis is brilliant as a satirical writer, and, like, I mean, he's the one who wrote Preacher, which is a very dark, cynical look at religion and America. And he did such a great job, but he goes into some really dark, messed up places that when he plays with satire, that satire is like it doesn't work. It doesn't play with live action. And so a lot of the adaptations they've done has played into live action super well. And from what I understand, one of the most like crazy, terrible, hedonistic things that ever took place in the comics apparently is happening this season. And, like, the interviews that they've talked about, where they're like, yeah, like, this episode, they're like, yeah, our production team, it was like a 5 to 6 day shoot, and our troopers, and, like, but, like, they took breaks, and when they took breaks, they would go outside, and they would just, like, all, like, everybody just kind of, like, stayed to themselves and stayed quiet because of, like, what they were, like what they were filming, like it's rough, and the scene in the comics is rough. And apparently they fully capture that and do a job where basically it's like, are you going to do it? Because if you do it, you have to do it right. You can't half-ass it. You have to go, because the scene that I'm talking about, which will probably be all over the news when eventually the episode airs, like,
It's going to be like Red Wedding levels of kind of like pop culture, like
I don't know if it'll
discourse,
hit
I would
red.
say.
I,
Uh,
I don't know if it'll hit Red Wedding, but it's going to be, people are going to, it's going to be that scene from The Boys that people talk about.
mhm.
That scene. And that, on that level, I would say it's going to hit, like, Red Wedding levels of, like, yeah, Red Wedding is that scene from Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
It's the scene everybody knows. It was everywhere. This will be that one as well.
Yeah,
It's yeah.
it's the scene that like book readers were waiting for years, and then show watchers were like, "What the hell?" When it
Yeah.
happened, kind of thing. Yeah.
This will be a very similar thing, but even to the extent of, there's a difference between seeing it in Garth Ennis's, I forgot who his artist partner was for that book series, but they do an amazing job of capturing like, at the time, modern Americana type art style. They used it for Preacher as well. It's very distinct, but but the thing about it is like it's still cartoonish. To see it happen in live action, I'm very interested to see what we're going to end up seeing happen.
Looks like Derek Robertson
Derek
was
Robertson, yes,
he was one of the artists. I don't like there are a handful of others, so depending on like when this moment kind of happens, but he was the co-creator and original illustrator.
Then I would definitely say it's probably him.
Yeah.
Here's the thing: The Boys as a comic book is fantastic, but it's extremely dated at this point. And like the characters from the show are not the same characters that you get in the comics. The characters are very different. Events happen very differently. Things are different. That being said, the show's awesome. I'm really enjoying it. I was happy it was only 3 episodes because I binged all 3 at the same time. And it's great to kind of see like these characters, especially some of the characters who have been kind of like the moral center for the show, really have to they've reached the bottom of their barrel of what they can do. And they're having to go outside of their normal wheelhouse, and it's entertaining and exciting to see. And it's rough. Yeah. It's rough because you're seeing good people having to make hard choices for what they know it's the right decision, but it is not a comfortable or easy choice to deal with. And it's visceral for some of the characters. And it's gut punching at some points. So very good. Very good.
It is a show I love, but cannot watch. I got, late into season 2 and was just like, all right, I can't deal with like the violence, the over the top violence that is in a lot of the series.
You got that far before you had to tap out. That's insane.
Yeah, it was.
Was it the whale?
No. The whale is like cartoony enough that it was fine. It's when like heads start exploding and stuff like that. I'm like, oh nope. Don't want to like.
Oh yeah.
It is very much, and the reason I could get as far as I did into season 2, for example, was because I would go out there before I would watch it, and I would like read full recaps, so I knew exactly what to expect in an episode before I would sit down and watch it.
You really can't prepare for the visceral experience of watching somebody's head explode.
But yeah, it's like even when I know it's coming, it's like, oh, I don't want to. It's the same reason like I when we did the Suicide Squad, I read all of the like here's all the violence and the gore and stuff in that before,
and it's still
I kind of watched it like off in the corner. So I wasn't like staring at the screen. But yeah, it's just a series that like phenomenal performances, phenomenal writing, and I love the targets that they take and the approach to those targets. But yeah, it's the same reason I can't like sit down and watch a lot of Tarantino stuff. It's just I don't the over the top physical violence and gore is just not my cup of tea. It's not like, in Invincible I can stomach it because it is an animated thing. Yeah. But this is very much like the live action version of the Invincible violence a lot of times. And that's just a lot. So, I've heard great things about the first few episodes of the season. And everything I had watched apart from like the gruesome fatalityness of it. I really enjoyed. I can't like when it comes out, I'm like, I wish I could, but I know it's just not. I think not
that's
for me. So
I think that's totally okay. I think like I'm never gonna be a person that's like, oh come on, dude, like dude. Nope. If it's your personal comfort level, like I know I am like I'm weird and a little twisted on some level for like being like, because I watch trauma films. I've watched a lot of like gory stuff, but there are some things like I just can't handle in movies and stuff like that. And for me, it's mostly anxiety. Like I forgot what movie we were talking about where it's like, I told you, I was like, I have way too much anxiety for this scene to watch it ever again. And I'm wondering,
Uncut Gems is like, that was another one where I was like, I read everything about that movie that I could before going into it. And still was like, oh my God, like it is just constant tension and knowing that the other shoe is going to drop at some point, but you don't know when and you don't know how. And yeah.
Remember when we went to see Joker?
Yeah. Yep.
Just like, yep. That like, this is a good movie. It's well done, but it is horribly uncomfortable. and intentionally so. It's intentionally trying to do that. That's the artistic point of it. But I don't want to be in that situation. I can watch somebody's head. I can watch.
I don't want to sit tense for 3 hours. I want, you know, I want the escape. I want to relax. I want to enjoy a thing. I don't want to sit there like constantly clenched, and uncomfortable for it. So yeah,
I feel you, man. I feel you. It's like I can watch somebody's head explode, no problem. Because I think on some level, like because I've watched enough like gory stuff like that, like I've watched enough of it to know that like the moment that gore hits, my brain immediately goes, "Hey, this is fake."
Yeah.
Which makes me horrified if I ever get into like a real life like catastrophe where my brain's not going to recognize that like horrible things are happening around me. That's a fear of mine.
Yeah.
But you know, that's I will say I think The Boys is awesome. I really am looking forward to see where this goes because we are exploring avenues that the comic books never really touched on. And just because the way that season 2 went, season 2 veered so far off of the comic book path that we are in completely uncharted territory, and I freaking love it. I will say massive shouts outs to Anthony Starr and Keith Urban.
Carl Urban,
sorry. Keith Urban's a country singer.
Yeah.
Carl Urban is...
And I believe it's Anthony Starr. I don't think there's an H in his name.
I think you're right. I think it is Anthony Starr. Anthony Starr, messing up everybody's names. Here we go. I will say, though, Keith Urban, married to an Australian.
Yeah. Nicole Kidman.
And there's a, hey, there you go. Not that's just tangent. That's tangentially related, not even really related at all.
Coincidental naming relationships, sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, Carl Urban, phenomenal. Jack Quaid's really good.
Jack Quaid's
I really
great
like Aaron Moriarty's character as well. And yeah, Anthony Starr as Homelander is, I think, like he's somebody who before seeing that show I'd never heard of, never seen him in anything, and like just immediately like just steals the show in that role, and the twists and turns that Homelander goes on are wild.
The promo, like when the promo image of him as Homelander came out, my jaw, because I was like, he's better as the Homelander than the comic version of Homelander. Like he's so good at like turning on the I'm your Superman charm to next moment visceral terrible thing, like terrible person, and it's amazing and it's incredible, but at the same time there is notes of humanity to his character that are not really like that are kind of pushed out the window and like not really thought about at all in the comic books, because by the time you're introduced to kind of like these more human facets of his character, he's already so far gone beyond the moral compass that like I said, the differences between these characters and the events that happen are extremely different. It's great. I love Homelander. I love Anthony Starr's Homelander. I love I love Homelander, the character. He's awful. I love that he's awful. He's like, you need for Butcher, like for a character like Butcher to exist and be your righteous fury character with like more like moral darkness to him, not even greatness, like moral darkness to him. To justify that, you need a character like Homelander, who is the difference between his comic book version is, I think the Boys version, the show is better. Because it's not as comic booky as far as it's there's some relatability to it. And and the character's arc is very different and it's good. I'm just a massive fan of the show. I can't wait for the future episodes. It's great. Can't wait for more.
Cool. We will wrap up then with some quick thoughts here on, as I said earlier, Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore, the latest in the Fantastic Beasts series. I made zero effort to try and see this in theaters after having sat through the last couple in theaters. This one came around as like, fuck turfs, as we've touched on already, and J.K. Rowling's turfness, and B, like, by the end of the last movie, Secrets of Grindelwald, they so far like lost any kind of sense of the plot that I was just like, I'm not paying to see that again. But I have HBO Max, and it, I think this was on one of those like 45-day windows, so it's already on HBO Max, even though it just came out like last month. And basically it was like, all right, I'll throw it on while I, clean or do some packing or something like that. And it's bad. They tried to do what they could with saving it, and I will say, like, Mads Mikkelsen, bringing him in to replace Johnny Depp, I like him better as Grindelwald, but the whole thing still feels like Newt Scamander is just an increasing afterthought in his own movie series as they just continue to dive into the like Dumbledore Grindelwald war.
Yeah. Man, that's so disappointing. So here's the thing. I'm an apologist for the original Fantastic Beasts film. Mm-hmm. I really enjoyed it because I was a Potterhead kid. I loved the Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, like little book that you could buy that had all these creatures. And I loved the idea of, before Newt Scamander, nobody really did any work to do conservation and learn about these creatures. And I'm like, how could you not? You live in this magical world filled with these magical creatures. How come nobody before Newt Scamander really documented them or like went in depth with them? And what I loved about the movie was the first movie was Newt Scamander was trying to do conservationist work. He was taking creatures that had been kidnapped from their homes by poachers and returning them to their natural habitats. And I love that idea of a character who, and eventually this guy will one day write a book that is what his name, like his claim to fame is. But in the meantime, we're watching a young person who's passionate about what he loves and is trying to do good things. And I like that, he is socially bumbling, a little awkward. I like that he has like a famous, like there's some mystery to his character that isn't like a, dark wizardy mystery. It's like, hey, there's something more to this character and he's a little complex, but he's also the kind of person that when he sees something that is out of sorts, or when he sees somebody who is, kind of like left to holding the bag, so to speak, like he takes care of them. I like his friendships that he makes. I like the kind of pseudo romance he develops. I like these certain things about his character of like, hey, this is a journey for him from going from being this like, I don't trust anybody to care about magical creatures the way that I do, to, hey, there are people out there in the world that do care about these things as much as I do. And maybe they don't care about them as much as I do, but they do care about these things. These things are important to the world, and more people are seeing that. And and I like that he found like-minded people who were not necessarily outcasts of society, but on the outskirts of society like he was. And I like the idea of like this band of misfits that are thrown together and end up kind of like, throwing off this like Grindelwald. Like, it turns out this was like a pseudo plot by Grindelwald. I didn't really care for that as much. But at the same time, I thought I kind of liked that it was like, the bumbling hero saved the day by just trying to do the right thing for people. Mm-hmm. And I liked that. I liked that idea. I liked that it was tied, like the Ezra Miller's character was tied into kind of like a thing that was kind of like hanging over Newt earlier, and it was a way for him to kind of like deal with the conflict that he had brought into the film and resolve it, and also like leave a little glimmer of hope. And I really liked that aspect of it. And I like kind of like where things seem to be going with it. I like that in the end, like the baker guy, he opens up his own bakery and he's famous for making baking goods that look like the fantastical creatures that he has been obliviated to forget, but he can't forget them entirely. And so he's recreated them. And then he has that beautiful meet cute moment with the girl that he fell in love with. And it's like, maybe like things are better off for having Newt Scamander has left things better than the way he found them. Mm-hmm. And I love that aspect of it. And then the second film just shits all
throws
over it.
all that shit out the window.
Oh my gosh!
Turns Queenie, the one that you're talking about there, into a wizard Nazi. But she aligns with Grindelwald, and it's like the barest.
Even though her love interest is a muggle.
Yeah.
Like I understand. I could understand it if she's like, I'm aligning with it because like if Grindelwald's thing was like, hey, the barrier between muggles and wizards is wrong. and we should all be one society and equality. Like,
And
I would have believed Goldie would go along with that. Sure.
Yeah, Queenie. And that's
Queenie,
like, that's
sorry.
kind of how they try and like pitch it, is like, oh, a marriage between a wizard and a muggle, or a nomad, I think, as they
In
call them in
America,
America, or whatever.
AKA racism.
Yeah. I mean, as
Yeah.
is Muggle, as beautifully portrayed and lampooned in Misfits and Magic over there at
100%.
Dimension 20.
100%.
But yeah, like the premise that she kind of like, the reason she buys into Grindelwald is he's not going to judge who she wants to marry, even though
So
like
stupid.
everything about him says no mages are bad, muggles are bad. Like, yeah, it's ridiculously stupid.
I hate it.
And
I
yeah,
hate it so
the second
much.
movie, terrible. They do terrible things with Credence, and this largely continues those things. They brought in Steve Kloves as a screenwriter who had worked on like a lot of the Harry Potter films as the screenwriter. And it's fascinating because in the credits for Secrets of Dumbledore, it's screenplay by J.K. Rowling and Stephen Kloves based on a screenplay by J.K. Rowling. So like, clearly she took the first pass at this, and then WB was like, we need somebody to come in and try and fix this. And like, he tried, but it's still bad. The core, without like diving into spoilers and stuff like that, the core like plot thread that they kind of follow in this is, in order to keep the magical beasts or fantastical beast theme, there is basically a fantastical beast that has given Grindelwald visions of the future, so he can see glimpses of the future, and in order to, you know, throw off those glimpses of the future, Dumbledore brings his crew of people together, including Newt, and basically sends them off on like a whole bunch of nonsensical side quest kind of things, and basically it is a very cheap way for the screenwriters to write off why none of the things they're doing makes any kind of logical sense, is because it needs to not make logical sense so they can get the upper hand on Grindelwald. It's like,
It's dumb.
this is just stupid. This is just very, very stupid. Potential, I don't know the veracity to these rumors, but Tina Goldstein, character played by Catherine Waterston in the first two films, barely in this one, like is effectively a non-presence, even though, you know, her sister, as we've touched on, has joined like the wizard Nazis, and they're trying to, you know, deal with that.
What the hell?
She's barely in it. They write it off as like, oh, she's been promoted to like head of the Aurors in America or whatever. But the rumors seem to be she is the one who has been most outspoken about J.K. Rowling's turf behavior, and most like, you know, vocal about, hey, J.K. Rowling's views kind of suck. So the theory seems to be that J.K. basically wrote her out of the script, as
Of course she would.
You know, shitty retribution. And again, I can't verify that, of course, but like like her absence is notable, and the one or two times she does pop up, including like basically like a throwaway thing at the end, is just like, well, none of this makes sense. And so yeah, it's not good, but it has like glimpses of like, it is easily the most we actually see the love story between Dumbledore and Grindelwald portrayed, in some really great scenes with Jude Law and Mads Mikkelsen, because they are great actors and can convey a lot with a little, even with, you know, less than stellar
Dude,
story
Trevor,
screenwriting. But it is
Trevor,
also very like, oh, they very clearly did shoot these in a way that could be easily edited out for foreign markets if they needed to, which is disappointing.
man, if you had told me 15 years ago, one, I would not have been like hyped about it because I was still closeted, like deeply closeted. And so like I wouldn't have thought it was cool. Future me, if you told, hey, if like future me went back and said, hey, listen, first off, pull you out of the closet, I wouldn't do that to myself, of course. I'm cool. But if it's like, hey, like you'll get Jude Law and Mads Mikkelsen being Grindelwald and Dumbledore and having some steamy romance looks. Young me would have been like, that sounds terrible, but secretly inside would have been like, that sounds amazing. And then I would get this, I would be so disappointed.
I mean, again, the version that I watched and those scenes are good scenes. It's just the knowledge of the politics of movie making that like they're very isolated scenes that can be removed from the story wholesale. Um, but in when they are included, they are the most tacit endorsement of Dumbledore's homosexuality that we've really gotten in anything. So, shout out to that representation if it actually, uh, uh,
Is
felt
allowed to
fully
exist.
supported. And again, like Jude Law and Mads Mikkelsen like show up to play in those scenes in really cool ways. And then even there, like again, not getting into spoilers, but like the whole premise of the last film was basically like they can't go toe to toe with one another because they've created this blood pact thing. And this one basically is like, all right, well, I guess they kind of can now because we're going to go ahead and undo some things. So if this series does somehow manage to continue, they're going to be able to go at one another full tilt if they need to. And it's like, okay, none of this is
What the
good
hell?
storytelling. It's just like
That
it
sounds awful.
and especially the things they did with Credence. I remember like walking out of the last one with what they did with Credence's character and like the revelation at the end of that movie that I
Hated it so
won't say for
much.
spoilers. They basically like undo and retcon that like
What?
immediately in this
What?
movie. Like it's it's still a a pseudo truth that they kind of introduce. I'll tell you when we're done recording, because I don't think you're gonna ever really care to watch it or whatever. Um,
No, I'm not.
but yeah,
I'm still angry about.
it's just not good.
Yeah.
And it felt like a cheap thing at the end of the last movie, and it just feels even cheaper now with like how that story has continued to play out. And it's weird because obviously this movie did not perform well, and the Fantastic Beasts series has continued to drop. It's also like wildly violent for what you would assume is the target audience. Like the Fantastic Beasts at the beginning of the movie are like brutally murdered by
What the
Grindelwald and
hell?
his people. Like in like, do not take 5 to 10-year-old kids to see this, or you will be traumatizing them. It's they just don't know who the audience for this is. Versus like Harry Potter, the audience was those kids, and as they grow up, you will grow up with Harry's journey kind of thing. This is very much like not made for kids. Like the first one kind of ish was, but like the series has just gotten darker and darker and is not, as they dive more and more into like we're just, very blatantly Grindelwald is a wizard Nazi. There you go. So yeah, it's bad. But the like pseudo completionist in me was like, I've heard how bad it was going into it. I'm gonna sit down, watch it, and see if it's really. And it was as bad as other people were saying. Lots of just very like the framework of the series seemed to be bad from the start when J.K. threw in the last minute twist of the first film that it was all a plot from Grindelwald. You take like you take that reveal out of that movie, and it's a fun romp with Fantastic Beasts, as you kind of touched on. It's it's this cool little idea of this quirky character, a side note, footnote character from the original series, and just kind of like the adventures that they could go on and do silly things with animals. And then they've just been like, you know what? I think we actually want to explore the larger wizarding war that was before, Voldemort. Let's do this
How
war
about
between
no?
Dumbledore and Grindelwald. It's like, okay, but like that
But
could have
dude,
just been its own
yeah.
movie series. You didn't need to like throw Newt into this as like the secret, first warrior in Dumbledore's army kind of thing. It's like, this is weird. Um,
I like the idea that it's like Dumbledore only has a small list of people that he trusts to do certain things, and when it comes to magical creatures, he reaches out to talk to Newt. And it's like I like the idea. It's like it doesn't have to be like a Dumbledore's army thing. It can just be like, hey, Dumbledore used to be young and had friends. He used to be hip with it, but then they changed what it was, and now he's no longer hip with it.
yeah. But yeah, the I think because of the, declining performance of the series over the last couple movies, there is almost like this potential for this could just be like, they originally were like, this is going to be a 5-movie series. This one ends. It's like, we kind of know where this story ends. We don't need to see 2 more movies about it. So I will be very curious, especially because WB just had a whole bunch of like executive changes, and usually when that happens, they kind of clean house on other projects and stuff. So I will be very curious to see if we actually end up like getting more Fantastic Beasts movies. But at the rate they're going, I just don't think we should. I don't think J.K. Rowling is a good screenwriter, and I think the films have suffered immensely because of that, and also because she sucks as a person.
Well, she also just like, there's so many things wrong with like, it's also like, let's go ahead. It's not just the turf thing for people like, well, it's like, even if you take away the turf stuff, the stuff she did with Nagini and like the depiction of Asian women and representation of Asian women in Harry Potter has not been stellar.
Yeah.
The whitewashing of an Asian character with Lavender Brown. You have there's a lot of stuff that ends up that has happened over the course of the series that it's just like and I don't think anything is as big of a point as like Cho Chang as a character basically being like, there's a lot that I could go into that I'm not going to, because honestly, I'm not going to waste my breath. I'm not going to waste the oxygen to put out a critique on this show over something that a person wrote years ago that honestly doesn't matter anymore. And even as I say that hurts.
Yeah.
Because this series really used to matter to me. Yeah. And seeing it kind of like driven into the ground between turf politics, poor representation, and just kind of like a look back and being like, hey, there's some stuff in here that's like super fucked up that like we never really noticed, but now in like in the cold light of day, it's very obvious that like certain characters who were supposed to be our heroes that you're like, hey, these are heroic characters, actually suck really badly.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. But yeah, that's Secrets of Dumbledore. If you have HBO Max and any of this sounded like appealing as a hate watch, knock yourself out. Otherwise, I do not blame you. But yeah, that is gonna do it for this week's episode. Thank you, Cam, for joining me to talk all these things. You can follow Cameron at Rev Cabot. Anything you want to give a shout out to there, Cam?
Yeah, I want to give a massive shout out, of course, to That D Plus show. We recently just had the episodes about Obi-Wan. You recently did it. I think there was a solo episode that you did about
Frank and Ollie, the documentary from the mid 90s about Frank was it Johnston and Thomas and Ollie Thompson? I don't remember their last names, but Frank and Ollie, a couple of Disney's 9 old men, iconic illustrators and animators from the early era of Disney. It was a cool little documentary.
And so, but in the future, we'll be having some really cool episodes where it'll be the conclusion of Obi-Wan Kenobi.
This week's going to be the Miss Marvel episode.
Yep. Miss Marvel, yep. We have a lot of really cool stuff coming out on that show, so go ahead and check that out. That's my shout out.
Cool. I will give a shout out to that was going to be my shout out. So instead, I will give a shout out to That News You Care About. As I mentioned earlier in the episode, I think Logan is actually out on vacation right now. So Cam is going to be joining me this week for That News You Care About. We were talking about it beforehand. We're going to do predictions for Summer Game Fest and for the upcoming Xbox Bethesda conference. So we'll do a good old fashioned Portillo's bet as we did in the days of yore. So go check that episode out later this week on podcast services around the globe. You can follow all of us over at That Nerdy Site or go to thatnerdysite.com for all the latest content from us. Once again, if you liked what you heard, please rate, review, like, subscribe, share the podcast with friends, all that fun stuff. Thank you for listening. As always, stay nerdy and be good to each other.